Hello everyone, it's time to do a fun little watercolor project again. We had sort of an intense one last month and now we're going to go back to just something just enjoyable, right? Just really fun and enjoyable. So I'm going to use my regular Winsor & Newton watercolors, just transparent watercolors. And I just received 3 of these mixed media sketchbooks that John told us about in the Zoom. They were very, very inexpensive on Amazon. So they're called Sophie's Mixed Media. They have a hot pressed finish, which is fine for me and fine for most people, I would think, for just little things that we're doing. And so I got the 5 by 5 by 8.5 inches, and we're going to try it today. And the nice thing is they're 140 pounds, so they're nice and thick. So they should be really great for the project we're going to do today. And I'm going to share with you an image. Let me just see if it came through here. All photos, nope. Hold on one second. Let me find this. I don't know why it's doing that. All photos. Okay. Yeah, it's not doing it. So I'm gonna try to get this image to load so you can see it, and I'm going to share it with you so you can print it or view it at home as well. So I came across this image. I just thought it was so pretty, and it's sort of blurry, but that's actually okay. We're not going to try to do every little detail of this lovely little potted hydrangea. You can blow it up if you want to, but I'm thinking just a small size as I positioned it on the paper, on the size to print it, would be perfect. And so I'm going to have this up here so I can look at it. But whether you print it or look at it on your iPad, keep it rather small so you can just see the lights and the darks and the details that you need to see. We don't need to zoom into this. That's not what this project is about. I loved it because I love the blue flowers, the green leaves that are kind of all staggered and light and dark and different shapes, which is really helpful for us to practice to capture the shapes of leaves. And I loved the mossy pot. So just super, super fun to paint tiny pots of flowers. And we've done this many times, and every time we do it, you guys absolutely love it. And so I like to bring it back every now and then, and this time of year is perfect. So the idea is that I show you a way to paint these tiny flowers, these tiny pots of flowers, and then you can take it into something else. You know, you can look at pots of flowers you have in your garden or that you find online, and you can make your own versions of them. And that is just really fun to do. So you don't need anything fancy. I've got my regular watercolors, just a sketchbook of watercolor paper. You can use cold press, you can use this, you can use sketchbook paper, whatever you want. Good paper, whatever you want, okay? But the thing is we want to keep these simple and fresh, all right? And I've just got my regular transparent watercolors, and I'll talk about the colors as I use them. So I'm gonna start by just drawing the little pot, and that's it. And I am going to make the bottom of it a little bit more curved than it is on there. And it kind of bows out. And it kind of bows out. So just a little pot shape, and make it a little bit more curved at the bottom than the image. I think that image was cropped and they cut that part out. All right, this is really all we need to draw, okay? We could also come up and, so about half the size of the pot up, we could draw the shape for the flower and just kind of put 1, 2, and then another one over here that's kind of up, and just a real basic shape. So we know where our flowers are going to go, all right? And then otherwise we've got leaves, and we don't need to paint them. We don't need to draw those. We're just gonna paint them in. And we're gonna keep it just really simple. Now, with my paints, for the blue, in my mind, this is the perfect mix. It's like a perfect cobalt, maybe. But if I take a little bit of ultramarine onto a dirty palette like that, it's almost perfect. But what you would do is take ultramarine and just add the tiniest, tiniest touch of like a permanent alizarin crimson or some kind of cool red like carmine or quinacridone rose, permanent rose, just to cool it off. I'm sorry, to warm it up a little bit, just to make it a little bit more violet than it is already, all right? So I'm just taking a little bit of French ultramarine and a teeniest bit of a cool red, and I've got a really nice sort of hydrangea blue. To make it more interesting, I can drop in a little bit more cool red as we go, okay? So for the leaves, which we're gonna do first, all right, I want to make a green with the same blue that I've used for the flowers, all right? And you don't need to put the alizarin crimson in it. And then some warm yellow. So take some warm yellow, mine is Indian yellow, put it in there until I get some green. I wanted a little bit more green than that, so I'm gonna put a touch more blue. Let's use cool yellow and see. I'm looking at those leaves and I want to do warm yellow, but maybe it's more cool. So then take some cool yellow. Yeah, that's better. So you could do a mix of warm and cool, and that's about right. If you do just cool, it might be too green, but I think that's good. You can also use your handmade paints if you've got a really nice green. You could use that. And you could also take a little bit of Viridian if you have that you can drop into the green as well. So I just have little puddles of paint happening here on my palette. Okay, and I can mix more as I need to. So I'm gonna start with just the green, not too dark. I'm gonna add a little bit more of my yellow to it. Start with a lighter version. So the more yellow we add, the lighter it's going to be. And I'm gonna start up here over the flower, and I am just going to paint the shapes that I see. So I see a little pointy shape. I see one kind of coming this way, kind of coming this way. Just really basic, all right? Don't worry if it's not touching your, because we'll paint the flowers in later. So it's just setting them into place. Over here on this side, I've got a little piece like this. I've got one that comes out that way. I've got one that comes this way. We are capturing the basic shapes of these leaf silhouettes without being too concerned about it, okay? And then I've got it coming down here. It's like a stem coming down. There's another leaf, maybe this way. So notice that I'm not being too particular, all right? I am instead just looking at these silhouettes and trying to get something that looks kind of like it. And there's one coming down this way. See how relaxed. It's just should not be stressful. Straight, and then it kind of goes this way. And while they're still wet, I can take some of the other greens and just some of the brighter green maybe, and just drop a little bit in. And we can add other colors later, but let's just get the basic shapes down. Go back to my green. There's one in here, kind of comes out. So I've got a stem, one that comes to this flower, and then one that might go to some leaves, all right? And then I would just want to fit some leaf shapes in here. All right, there's a leaf shape there. And there's one coming down here. So notice how truly free and easy I'm making this, okay? And we're gonna go back later and add some dark spots, but right now I'm just getting in some basic shapes that remind me of what I see on these leaves. It's kind of a big one there, and there's kind of a big one that sticks out over here. I'm just keeping it as simple as possible. Because the whole point of these are just little fun things that you can paint at a moment's notice. There. All right, lovely greenery. Now, we want to let these dry in between layers. Okay, we want this green to dry because then we're going to come back in and we're going to put a layer of blue on, and then we're going to do our pot. And then when all of that's dry, we'll come back and we'll put some details on the leaves, details on the pot, details on the flowers. All right, so each little separate section, we just let it dry. I'm going to drop in, but a little bit more. Just so I've got some variations happening. If you want to, you don't even have to. Okay, that's it. Very, very free and relaxed. Just looking at the shapes and trying to emulate the shapes with your brush. All right. The whole point of this is that you can look at a pot and kind of squint your eyes and put those shapes down. All right, and get the basic shapes of everything, and then come back later and add a few little details, and you've got a beautiful little painting. It's so much fun. All right, so let's let this dry and we'll come back. Okay, let's move on to our beautiful blue. So here, I'm gonna leave my pencil marks. You can make yours as light as possible if you want. Let me see if I can, I don't know if I can erase that or not over the green. I just wanna leave them, but you can make them lighter if you don't want them to show at all. But I like you to be able to see. So I'm going in with this blue, all right, and fairly transparently, my brush is wet, okay, and I'm keeping sort of the frilly edges that I see on the flower. I don't need to just paint an oval, right? So I'm just, see how I'm letting my brush dance. So the edges look petally. And then here they sort of come over the green. And you can leave a little white space on the side. And then same thing here. So just keep it sort of light and pretty. Drop more color in, and then you're just going to let this dry. Okay. Now, because we're away from down here, we can just move right into the our lovely pot. So what I want to do is I want to start light, all right, and I want to start with a light green. So that means I'm going to use mostly a cool yellow. I'm just picking up some of my green there, and then just a touch of blue. So just sort of make a light mossy green. All right, and it's actually got quite a bit of yellow in it. And I'm going to start up here and just paint around the leaves. I'm leaving my edges dark there, all right? So every time I erase them really lightly, someone says that they can't see my drawing, so I'm just gonna leave the pencil lines. Okay, then I'm gonna go in and make the green a little bit darker. And well, first first let's use brown. So I'm just going to use sepia. You could also make a brown by mixing, and all I have to do is touch it, right? But you can make a brown by mixing ultramarine, because we've already used the light green, it's going to just kind of go where that goes. All right. And then just wipe away, dry it off, wipe away. And that's going to give you sort of that frilly edge. Okay. And then the same thing at the bottom. So I was saying you could make it with French ultramarine and burnt sienna. Or if you have sepia, it's just so easy to use sepia. All right, same thing, rinse your brush, dry it off, put your brush tip toward the bottom and wipe away. Wipe across the line, and it's just going to give you sort of a soft edge, all right? And then pick up some of your green again. And see how easy, I'm keeping this easy. Just mix a green. Don't stress about it. Grab a little yellow. Maybe a little Viridian if you have it. Viridian always makes greens beautiful. All right, and then I can drop in a green across the center. Then I want to take my brush, clean it off, and have sort of a damp brush and just drop some water in along these edges. Just drop some water in. Let it flow. And it's going to make it do cool stuff. Dry my brush off. Just run it across that edge again. By running it across the edge, you're forcing it to just soften and just lightly separate. And then I can just drop in some water. And just make it kind of dreamy. Drop in a little bit more brown. So you want stripes, but you want them kind of all soft together. Now, the edges are not going to be smooth. All right, so once you have it down, you can take your brush and the very tip of your brush, and you can just break the edge a little bit. I can just do that by dabbing my brush along the edge. So it's not perfect. Okay. All right, so at this point we need to let it dry again, okay? I would say, yeah, we really can't work on the leaves until these two are dry. I like to keep going if you can, but I'm gonna lift up some of this. Well, I've got a lot of water happening there, so I'm just gonna touch my brush to it and lift some of that up. There. Okay, so let this dry completely, and then we'll come back and start adding on the details. Okay, so now we're going to continue on, and first we're going to work on a little bit of detail on the flowers. We don't need too much, all right? My whole purpose in teaching you this is to teach you something just sort of fun, light and airy that you can do in the summertime for a quick little project, a little note card for someone, a little gift for someone, just really, really fun. And I want to start with my same blue, okay? And I want to turn it a little bit darker. I can add in sepia, I can add in burnt sienna. Since I'm already using sepia, I'm going to use that, but burnt sienna would be fine. Burnt umber. For these little projects like this, things like sepia are great. You know, those convenience mixes just to make things quick and easy. So if I look at if I look at my reference, I see a little dark bit here, so I can kind of make scalloped edge. And so this part of the flower is sort of in the shade, right? And then over here, there's like some little spots to go darker. Just a few here and there. Just notice where there's some dark spots and just add in some dark spots. Don't think about necessarily making it into a real flower, right? Just look at the dark spots and sort of mimic those. It's really all you need to do. There's a little piece that kind of hangs down over here. Like it's in the shade. There's a real dark spot right here. That's just because it cuts away and you're seeing that leaf underneath, but it doesn't matter, it's a dark spot. So just a few, that's all you really need. I put one up here because that leaf's sort of hanging over. You see how it just gives the illusion that there's something going on, that there's some depth and dimension here, maybe just a little bit right here. Okay, and we'll let that dry. So now the same thing with our green, we can wake that up and we can make some darker green, and we got to go pretty dark this time. So stronger blue, right? And I still want to go with my cool yellow, I think, because just made a nicer green with this. I'm about out of cool yellow. So I'll go to this one. This is transparent yellow, which is also cool. So nice dark green. Now I want to paint the leaves that I see that are darker. So up here, for instance, this might be a little darker right here. So it kind of comes underneath, right? And then this one is underneath, so it's going to be a little bit darker. And then over here, this one that kind of came out, we can sort of surround that and then bring it down. And then maybe make this back one a little darker. And here is a little darker shape. And maybe here, the bottom of that one is a little darker. Kind of came down this way. And then this one here, we can just sort of make that one darker. And these we're going to keep really simple. And then just maybe the front part of this leaf is darker and the back side is maybe lighter. Here we've got one that comes around that stem, and we can leave the stem light in between, see? And then make the leaf darker. See how I just left that little strip of light there? Maybe one deep inside here is darker. And then this one's, we'll keep that one lighter, but maybe there's some dark underneath. And then these that are right around the flower, we can go in and make that darker, and then make the stem darker. Here, this one is really light there, but then it's kind of dark toward the back. So if that happens, we can put a little dark spot. We can rinse our brush, we can dry it off, and then we just soften it down, so just a little bit dark and parts of it. Same thing with this one, it kind of comes under here. And that's dark where it's right underneath these other leaves. And we can rinse it and dry it off and just soften it down so it's light at the tip. So you see how we're just getting easy dimension here? Same with this one under the flower. We can keep this a little bit darker. And then make this one, like the underside, a little bit darker. And this one here, we can make darker at the top. And along this side, maybe a little bit right here. And then the rest of it, rinse our brush and dry it off and just soften. It's darker up top there. That one down there behind, we can leave a little space between the two and then make the one in back a little darker. So now we've got a lot of dimension in our leaves. I think these in here that are behind the flowers need to be dark, right? But it's so much easier to put them in light first and get the shapes down in case you're not happy with them. They're easier to change and paint around. I just want to make that a little bit stronger there. Rinse and dry my brush. Just soften. So now my leaves look fantastic. Okay. Now I want to go to a brighter blue. So I'm going to use either phthalo blue or Prussian blue. Something transparent and clear. Here's my phthalo blue. And just sort of put it in a part of the blue that you already have. Mix a little bit of it in there. But it's just making it a little bit more clear and bright. And now I want to add a little bit more of those little areas where just a few little marks here and there. Not too many, just a couple marks, just to give it a little bit more texture. I mean, I'm really just making little dots, okay? Let that dry. Now for our pot. I want to take some of this green again, but first I'm going to put a little water glaze on the whole pot. Everything else I'm pretty happy with, but I want to take some of the green again. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to this green because I want that mossy green. And again, on top of the water glaze, see how I'm just making little dots? And then maybe just a little bit of yellow above it. Just tiniest bit. And then again, a little bit of sepia, just making dots. So it's almost like we're putting texture, like a texture layer on top of these little dots. Okay. And now we're gonna let that dry, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna put a glaze layer on everything. Okay, now our last little bit for the flowers is a very pale glaze, and I am going to use permanent rose. And I want to put it in a clean place because I want it to be really clear. Tiny touch of it. Very, very, very pale. Okay, and it's just going to bring a little light and turn them a bit lavender and just sort of unify them just a little bit. And if you put enough on, sometimes when it dries, you get a lovely little pink edge, and it just gives them a little magic. The leaves I'm not going to touch, okay? So for the rest of this, what I'm going to do is use, oops, hold on one second. My battery is going dead, I'm sorry about that. So what I'm going to do for the rest of it, when I saw this, I thought, ooh, graphite. So we don't get persnickety with it, right? And so I'm going to go into my little pot with a graphite pencil, and at the edges, I'm going to make little scribbles, and that's going to sort of make those edges look mossy. There are going to be scribbles at the bottom that kind of come off the paint, up the sides, really, really small. And then I'm going to do them on the paint itself, just very light little scribbles. See that? I'm just kind of going back and forth really lightly. I'm not pressing hard. I'm being very, very gentle. And it gives the perfect amount of mossy texture. Without being fussy. So you can try this with all different flowers on top too. We once did a mossy pot of Lily of the Valley that was really pretty. No, I'm sorry, they were snowdrops. Really pretty as well. And then I can go into my hydrangeas and put a little extra oomph in the dark spots in just one little place and kind of separate some of the petals just to give it a little. See that? I can just lightly separate those petals. It's really fun. And it just gives it just enough. Without just lightly separating them. Just kind of barely outlining them, but just a little bit. And there we go. Let's turn this way. I had it cocked, so to that direction so you could see better. Isn't that super sweet? And then you can just put your little signature. And it would make a lovely little hostess gift or birthday gift, a little note card, and it doesn't take long at all. Very pretty. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Next week, we'll do a little bit more, something small like this, something small and doable in one sitting. Okay? All right. Take care and I'll see you soon.